So my journey and story of endometriosis is I first started my periods when I was about 12. They'd always be heavy, painful. I'd miss school. I'd see the GP, but was always told it was normal, part of being a woman, and that was just life. I was put on the pill when I was about 14. That sort of helped with the pain, the symptoms, the bleeding. So I stayed on that for a few years while I did my studies. So sixth form, went to uni, and then when I was about 18, I had a little boy, and after that, things just sort of went from bad to worse. The bleeding just got out of control, and the pain, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't look after my newborn. I was just solely reliant on pain relief and hot water bottles and just staying in bed. It wasn't alive. And that's when the GP thought, okay, things aren't quite normal. So they referred me to gynecology. Saw a general gynecologist, and he said I was too young to have anything wrong with me. I was around 20, so they was like, you're fit and healthy, you're only 20, there's something wrong with you. I don't think you've got endometriosis. I'd explain all my symptoms, the bleeding. I'd pass out from how bad the pain was. It was awful. It was relentless. So then he referred me for a diagnostic lab, like laparoscopy surgery. And I was actually diagnosed with endometriosis. So then I was referred to a specialist who did further surgery. I had my appendix removed in 2019 because of endometriosis. I had a ruptured appendix. And then I had an actual endometriosis excision surgery, as they call it, in 2021. My bowel and my womb were stuck together. My bladder was all the way to the back of my body. Everything was just weren't in the place it should have been. So I had that done, and then I was recovering and started on a medication called Prostat, which just basically puts you into like a temporary menopause. It's meant to like shut off, I think, like the hormones in your body. So I did that, and I was at uni. I went to uni in Salford and did nursing. So it got me through uni and got me through sort of the first year of working. And then things just slowly crept back in. The pain, the bleeding, the Prostat didn't really do much anymore. I was still suffering. So I had scans, I had some MRI scans and CT scans. Sometimes it doesn't always show up on a scan. But when they did the scan, they could see that I had quite extensive endometriosis. So I was actually referred to a more specialist centre in Manchester, St Mary's, who I saw my consultant, who I'm now still under. He did more scans and just confirmed what the previous scans sort of said. So I waited for surgery with him, which I had in 2023, I think. But in the meantime, whilst our home life and things, we bought a house and things like that, and we wanted to try and settle down, extend our family. And my son, my little boy, Henry, bless him, was saying all the time, I really want a sibling. When am I going to have a sibling? I want a brother, I want a sister. So we try, and every time it was, you get pregnant and then you go for a scan, and unfortunately, you're not pregnant anymore. So that happened multiple times. So then I was referred to, the IVF people and things like that. And then I got pregnant again in the start of 2022. Managed to stay pregnant. Found out I was having a little boy. And then my waters went when I was about 17 weeks. And then about a few weeks after that, I was struggling with bleeding and things. So I came into the hospital, and they said, no, unfortunately, this pregnancy can't continue. So then I had my little boy, Ewan, we named him. We got to a funeral for him and things like that. And then we sort of just took a pause on that sort of journey for a bit, focused on the life we have as a three, things like that. And then about a year or so later, we thought, let's, we'll try again. But in the meantime, in the background, I still was waiting for this surgery with this new hospital, this new consultant. So I managed to have the surgery booked in for the February of 23. it was only that soon because I literally spent every other week in A&E's. You know, I couldn't walk. I'd just pass out. It was ridiculous. I couldn't go to the toilet either way, you know, a wee or the other. um, and it was just awful. And I eventually had this surgery, like I said, in 2023. We knew it was going to be extensive, but we didn't know the extent it would be. I woke up in intensive care. I was in intensive care for a few days. The surgery was about 8 hours long. I had sort of like some stents and things put in my ureters, like the tubes from your kidneys to your bladder. Those different endometriosis taken from everywhere. I had it on my belly button. I had a new belly button put in because it just didn't work or didn't look like a belly button anymore. Yeah, and that just, I'd recovered from that for a few months. And we thought, okay, you know, we'll try and extend our family again. So we went to the IVF clinic where we were under, having all these tests done. And then they said, do you know you're pregnant? And I was like, what? Didn't know. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, so obviously we was over the moon, and anxious, but over the moon. And it was, the first few weeks were all right, but then as the weeks went on, I started like bleeding again, things like that. So obviously we feared the worst. Went for scans and regular checkups, everything was okay. And then my waters went again at 17 weeks. So me and my Dan, my partner Dan, were obviously thinking, oh, great, you know, we know this is going to end. But everything was all right. And our daughter we've now got, she held on. She's a fighter. She always has been. And then the weeks went by. I was trying to work, and obviously as a nurse, and then family life and sorting out Endo. Honestly, it was crazy. And then I think it was about 26, 27 weeks, and I'd started with a bit of discomfort. Went to the hospital. They said, oh, you've got a placental abruption. So I was like, right. So straight to surgery, and she was born at 27 weeks. But I'm a NICU nurse, so I work on NICU, and obviously with her being born premature, she then had to go on NICU as well. So that was a bit of an experience, having my own baby at work, but that was fine. It was a roller coaster journey and things, but you know, it was okay. And she's fine now. She's 2.5. She's crazy. And then once I had Pippa, the endo started getting bad again. And I went for some more scans, and they said, oh, yeah, it's bad. Your endo's bad. It's in your bladder, your bowel, so on. So was listed for more surgery, and I had a hysterectomy in 2024 when I was 26. I kept my ovaries because of my age, but everything else was removed, and they said that your bladder's not great, and that needs sort of like some extensive work to it. So I've currently got, well, I've had a catheter now for a few years, got a super pubic right now. So I had this hysterectomy, and that was great. I felt fine again for a few months. And then sort of the start of last year, start of 25, I started with, it was really random symptoms. So when I was, obviously I didn't have a period because I didn't have a womb, but I still had cycles with my ovaries, and I started getting like a really strange symptoms, like I kept coughing every time I was due on my period, or I get nosebleeds, cough up blood. But then when I wasn't around the time of the month, I was fine. Didn't think anything of it, just thought, it must be just coincidental. But then when I went back to see Guy for like a follow-up, I mentioned my symptoms to him, and he said, oh, that's a bit strange. We'll do a scan of your chest. So I was like, okay. So we did a thorax, like a chest MRI, and I got called back in a few weeks later. They said, you've got endometriosis on your lungs. It's on your diaphragm, in like your space between your ribs and your lungs, and we think on the inside of your lungs. So I was like, okay. So he said, so the symptoms, you know, you've been having are related to that. He said, so you're going to need referring, but where we live, sort of like in Manchester, there's no specialists for all that in the area. So I got referred to just the general like thoracic surgery team. They didn't know anything about it. No one knew anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. So it was a very scary time. But I was in and out of A&E. I couldn't breathe. I was going to intensive care on breathing support and all sorts, sort of like at the time of the month. So I tried different treatments. I tried Prostop again, and I tried something called Zoladex, which is basically the same but slightly different, like how it's made up. And then new drugs that were in the news, like the Ryco, Letrozole, that sort of things. Nothing really changed anything. So they got in contact with someone who is a endothoracic surgeon in Oxford. And he actually came up to Manchester and operated on me with my gynecologist. And I was diagnosed with thoracic endo, the first one in Manchester, apparently. They removed a bit of the bottom of my lung. The outside of my lung was stuck to my heart, the outside of my heart, so they unattached that. Just did move some pelvic, thoracic endo plaques and stuff, and yeah, so I had that done. That was the end of last year in October. And then I've just recently seen a urologist, and they've told me that I need my bladder removing, which I thought was going to be the case with having a catheter, and I can't wee, and all I do is just wee blood and things like that. So that's sort of like the next steps. So yeah, it's been a hectic few years. So yeah, I was diagnosed eight years ago, still suffering, 28 now, but we just carry on, don't we?